This time on Bone Revivals, we're going to turn a $500 truck into a budget build muscle truck. So this is my 1983 Chevy S-10, quite the majestic unit, if I say so myself. I bought this truck about 1.5 years ago off a really good family friend. It was actually Joe over at the machine shop. He had this truck, and funny story behind it was he had this truck, he went through and redid it dozens of years ago. I mean, it probably was done 15 years ago, I'd say, and it just sat in his yard for the longest time. Like I said, originally it is an 83. It did have the smaller V6 in it, which I believe was a 2.8, with it being an 83. But maybe 5 years ago or so, he decided that he wanted to get rid of that motor and the tranny that was in it, and he wanted to upgrade. He had a 1989 Chevy S-10 Blazer that had the 4.3 liter V6 and a built 700R4 that he built himself. And let me tell you something, when Joe builds a transmission, he builds a transmission. All right, honestly, I can't lie, the 700R4 that's in this truck is probably the best 700R4 that I've ever drove. I mean, yes, the one in the square body's fantastic, but this one just shifts so hard where it's just like, it feels like your neck's about to snap. It's awesome, and I love it. But anyways, so as I was saying before, the 4.3 liter V6 did not come standard in 83. We actually did a motor and transmission, and funny enough, a dash swap out of his 89 S-10 Blazer into the Chevy S-10 about 5 years ago. I believe I was a junior, in high school when we did it. So basically we did it. Me and my dad did the motor and trans swap for him, and Joe had the truck for about 1 year where he drove it, but it needed front ball joints, so he ended up parking the truck. Great story is, numerous years later, probably about a good 3-ish years later, Joe says, you know what, I don't want this truck anymore, I want to sell it. And I said, yeah, you should sell it. And he goes, okay, I will. And then I said, but to me. And he went, okay. Next thing I know, here I am owning this 1983 Chevy S-10, and I can't lie, I have done nothing but abuse this truck for the past 1.5 years, almost 2 years that I've owned it. When I bought it, I think it had somewhere between like 105 to 108,000 miles on it. It now has 122, so we've drove it quite a bit, especially considering the amount of other vehicles that I have. But recently, this truck has been serving as my daily driver, and honestly, quite frankly, it literally is the shop truck for the channel. I mean, the amount of engines and transmissions and just other garbage that has been hauled in the back of this truck has been a trooper. But what I wanted to do with this video was something a little bit different for you guys, because let's say you're a dad or a mom that's in the hot rodding, right? And you're looking to get your 16-year-old son or daughter a first vehicle, right? It all happens. It comes that time where the little squirts grow up to be, you know, little brats. I know that because I was one. Anyways, you're going to be looking for some sort of vehicle, but you're a cool parent, right? You're not some lame parent that's going to go buy your kid a Prius. No. Because if you were one of those people, you wouldn't be on this channel, right? Exactly. My point proven. Anyways, so you're looking to get your kid something cool. You're on Facebook Marketplace and you find something just like this for, let's just say $500 to $1,000, right? So you go out and you buy the thing. Of course, it's going to have its issues. When I first got this truck, we put ball joints in it, and I did a bunch of other little work here and there. But this truck honestly isn't perfect, and it's actually arguably kind of sketch right now. It needs a whole bunch of other work, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to take you on this journey, and we're going to turn this truck from a clunker into a really, really awesome muscle truck. And when I say muscle truck, I'm talking on a budget. So it ain't gonna be no 600 horsepower LS under the hood. No. We're gonna do this old school. We're gonna do it on a shoestring budget, and we're gonna see if we can we take this truck from where it currently sits, and can we put something together that is really, really badass for anywhere between, my budget that I'm gonna give myself is $3,000 to $3,500. Can we make this truck into what it is now, budget build it into something super, super cool that your kid would love to drive to school and be the most badass person in the parking lot? So I figured I'd bring you in here for a minute just to show you some stuff, give you a little bit of an in-depth view of the truck. Here's that 4.3 liter V6 that we were talking about. Like I said, it's got about 122,000 miles on it currently, and I can't lie, it runs all right. It does burn oil a little bit. That could be a multitude of things. That could be guides, that could be guides in the heads, that could be honestly, engine could just be tired. The rings, could start getting some blow by past the rings, and who knows what the actual problem is. But basically, in order to fix it, the motor has to come out. However, like I said, we're going to try to do this as if you were a parent or even a kid that literally just bought their first truck. So this motor is going to stay in here for a little bit longer. What we are going to do is we are going to do some maintenance stuff on it, and I'm going to run you through all that. We're going to do an oil change and stuff like that. We'll show you all that. And we're going to do a whole bunch of little other work here and there to make this thing roadworthy and driving. Like I said, when it comes to me, I can't lie. When it comes to me, my standards are low. When it comes to having a vehicle to run and drive down the road, like most people's expectations are here. Mine are here. Does it run? Yes. Does it have forward gears? Yes. Does it stop? Kinda? Sure. Let's run it down the road. That's my standards. However, we're going to try to do this one the somewhat correct way for you guys. Because like I said, if you're a parent and you're looking to get your son or daughter their first vehicle, or you're literally just getting into hot rodding yourself and you're on a budget, we get it, man. We've all been there. And basically this video is going to kind of be, and this entire series that we're doing is going to be for people just like you. So I'll give you a quick little view of the interior here. Nothing special, roll down crank windows. Originally when I got this truck off of Joe, it actually had bucket seats in it out of his S-10 Blazer. I ended up cleaning up the bench seat, and like I said, bench seat's not perfect. It's got some tears in the driver's side, but otherwise a nice plush comfy ride. Funny enough, the rearview mirror actually just fell off this morning, so we're gonna have to fix that, but the interior is not complete. The headliner is still half hanging in, and we actually need to finish that off. It's missing a whole bunch of stuff here down in the carpet. The big thing that we need to fix is, hold on, let me just get rid of these placement holders for you here. And yeah, it doesn't have a floor pan down here. That's all missing. That's, like I said, I told you that my standards were pretty low, but we're gonna have to get in there. It needs a driver's side floor pan, so we will be fixing that in this series as well, and a few other things too. It needs an exhaust. The exhaust that's on it is half rotted off, half hanging off, and we're going to put an exhaust on it too. And there's a bunch of other little stuff that I want to do too. It looks really cool with these rims and tires on it. I can't lie, they're actually a mix. Some of these are original GM wheels, some of them are American racing rims that look exactly like them. I do like it. The truck has really cool stance. The tire size is 235/75 15s, but as cool as these tires are, I have something else in mind that I think you guys would really like and just would make this truck pop. One thing that is unique about this truck that I didn't mention before, it is actually a four-wheel drive truck, which is pretty cool. Here is your transfer case shifter right there. It actually is a four-wheel drive truck. Not a very common thing that I've noticed for the S10s. Finding one of these that are the square body-esque style that are actually the four-wheel drive trucks. But with that being said, it kind of makes it a little interesting. Also actually kind of makes it a little tough too, because a lot of guys would just do a really cool V8 swap and, put a good built trans in it and then not worry about anything. Unfortunately for us, when it comes to trying to put a high horsepower V8 in this thing, we have to worry about blowing the transfer case apart and also the front axle apart because it is a four-wheel drive truck. So that kind of limits us on how crazy we want to go. Also, the rear end, typical for these trucks, it's a 10 bolt 7.5. So these things are fragile like glass, and that's fine. I have abused the snot out of this one and it has survived up to this point, so we're just going to keep going with it. I believe it's got 355 gears. It actually pulls reasonably well for it being a 180 horsepower V6. But like I said, all that stuff eventually will be changing. But today, we're just going to do some little typical maintenance stuff. We're going to change the oil and get us kicked off on this series of wrenching on this truck. I'll go ahead and fire this thing up for you. Usually what I like to do before we get an oil change done on it, I usually like to let it run a little bit, let it warm up. Basically what that's going to do is going to heat up the oil. It's going to thin the oil up a little bit for you, and it's going to get most of it out of the pan quicker and more efficiently. So we'll roll this thing up in front of the garage here, let it run for a few minutes. It doesn't need to get smoking hot because, like I said, we're gonna be under there and potentially draining the oil out of it. So it would suck a little bit to burn yourself with the oil, but we'll roll this boy up and we'll slide under it and we'll drain all the oil out of the pan. Don't embarrass yourself. You're gonna be on YouTube. Having the old lady pull the truck up on the ramps for us. Is it spinning? Oh, it's just spinning the back tire, isn't it? Do a burnout! No, I'm kidding. Okay, put it in neutralis. And then grab that shifter thing down there and pull it down into 4 low. Yeah, I'd push the button in, yep. And then it's gonna come back and it's gonna go over. Yeah. Yank on it. Come on, you got it.
This way.
Come on, baby girl, you got it.
It's not going there.
There you go. So now you pretty much just put it in 4-wheel drive, so it should crawl up it for you. Go ahead. Right there. Yep. Gorgeous. So we're gonna drop the oil out of this thing, boosting up our drain plug. Hopefully I have our bucket here in place. It's definitely needed to be changed because I know it's been probably a good 4,000 or 5,000 miles on this oil. So, oh yeah. First things I usually like to look for. Most of these plugs have a magnetic tip. So when you actually metal chunks will get attracted. That's in the motor, the trash that's rolling around. You actually be able to see it. I don't see any as I'm losing the oil on the part of the driveway there. I don't see any metallic flake / material, so that's good. That would indicate that you have something going wrong, like you're losing a bearing or something like that, which we do not have, which is good news. So we'll let this drain out all the way. I'm gonna go crawl it back up top. Most times, for guys that aren't familiar with these trucks, excuse me, a lot of the times, most of it being a GM small block-esque application, usually your oil filter would be right there next to the pan, like on normal small block Chevy, that's where they'd be. However, because this is a 4-wheel drive truck, it was 4-wheel drive S-10, they were worried about the actual filter hitting the front drive shaft here. Because it's a 4-wheel drive truck, they actually relocated the filter to up here. All right, so we have ourselves an ACDelco filter here that's brand new. You can get that at Walmart. Or if you're lazy like me, you can just order these both right up off of Amazon. I'll actually leave a link down in the description for you guys because let's be honest, sometimes you don't want to have to run all the way to the store just to grab some stuff. So sometimes I like to be a little lazy and just go on Amazon and click, and that shows up a few days later and you got everything that you need. But either way, I'll leave a link down in the description for you guys in case if that's the way you want to do it. That or either way, like I said before, you can run to Walmart and pick up this stuff reasonably cheap. And the oil that we're putting in this is going to be Rotella 1540. Now I know what you're thinking. Come on, Rob, there's another guy on the internet that does the same thing. Don't be that guy. Well, the reason why I'm doing it is because that other man is absolutely correct on putting these into these older engines, especially when it comes down to needing the and obviously any oil nowadays that you buy off the shelf is not going to have the actual properties, especially the additives for zinc that these old hydraulic flat tappet motors like. But for what's on the market, this diesel oil does the trick. If I can not spill it all over the place. That's what happens when you're trying to hold the camera and do it all at once. But so that's what we're going to put in. And honestly, to do an oil change with the 1540, get it from a Walmart or whatever, it's actually really, really cheap. So what you just saw me do there while I was talking before too is I like to put a little bit of oil in the actual filter. I don't quite fill it up all the way because some of it does spill out onto when you're trying to thread it back on. I'm trying to thread the filter back on, but I will fill it up like 3/4 of the way. And then we'll go throw our filter back on. And at that point, our pan should be done draining. We can put our plug back on and then fill the motor back up with oil. So another thing I'm gonna do here too is we're gonna write the date and mileage on our filter. It's something that we've tried around here. We're trying to get ourselves in the habit of doing because my dad said it in a previous video when he was working on that green square body that we have. When you have this many vehicles, it's hard to keep track of. So writing your date on the filter, and then either your mileage and or operating hours, depending on what engine you have. It helps you out in the future. So what is today's date?
Today's the 24th.
The 24th? Sure. Here.
24th.
You almost gave me the wrong date. It's 27.
Oh, no. Sorry.
8/27, and I believe there's, let's check the odometer. 121,466. Holy smokes. 121,466. She's about 600 away from clicking over 122. So there you go. Now you got your date and your mileage on it. So it'll help you out the next time you go to do the oil change, or if the truck sits for a while, or you just happen to be under the hood one day and you look over and go, oh, that's how many miles. And you do the math, and I'm not very good at math, but you can figure it out from that. So got our filter in. That's all good to go. We're going to put our drain plug back into the oil pan. We're going to fill this bad boy up with some fresh oil. All right, drain plug's back in. I'm going to snug it up with the ratchet here. Don't want to go too tight with it, but definitely snug. All right, that'll do it. All right, now we got to go fill it up. So this should take about 5 quarts. Usually you can look in your owner's manual and see. If you don't have the owner's manual with the vehicle that you bought, you could probably look it up on the internet and it'll probably tell you. Just confirm it over a few sources. Don't Wikipedia it, because that's usually when, Wikipedia is bad from what I hear. But we're going to fill it up with this. Now remember, believe what, there was 4 quarts in this? Yeah, there's 4 quarts in this gallon jug here. And basically we put probably 3/4 of a quart, if not a full quart, in that oil filter. Probably more like 3/4 of a quart. Usually the bigger oil filters, especially for the small box Chevys, are roughly a quart, but the filter for this 4.3 liter is a little bit smaller. So we'll roughly have, well, about 4 in it. But it'll probably be about 5 counting what's in the actual filter. So we might have to top it off a little bit. Another thing that we're gonna have to do too is, at least there's oil in it now, and there should be 4 quarts of it. We'll try to fill it up. We'll get a measurement off the oil dipstick, see where it's at. If it needs a little bit more, put a little bit more on it. One thing that we are gonna do though, to officially top it off and call it full, we'll actually back it down off the ramps, because with the motor sitting up in the air like this, all the oil is gonna go to the back of the pan. And that's not gonna help give us the quite accurate measurement to see how much is in it. So yeah, we'll come back when we top this thing off. All right, I'm gonna pull the dipstick out here. Like I said, it's not gonna be completely accurate. Okay, that's pretty much right up to the line there. Now remember too, there's gonna be a little bit on the dipstick tube. The key is though, is you don't want to overfill this, because when you actually overfill your engine with oil, it's actually not good, because the oil's job is to fit between the spaces between your bearing clearances and keep all that moving parts lubricated. If you put too much oil into it, it actually kind of acts like goop almost, where like the oil actually can't all flow throughout the small crevices within the engine to actually lubricate everything. So you got to pay a little bit of attention to it. If it's one of those things, especially with an old engine like this, where it probably burns a little bit, and this one does burn oil. If you overfill it a little bit, in about 200 miles, it ain't gonna matter anyways, because she's just gonna go. But bleeding it on the stick, it is good, but we are going to fire it up. The only thing that does stink about when you have your vehicle on ramps to do the oil changes, and you fire it up, it's going to cycle the oil through the engine via the oil pump and everything. So basically, we're gonna have to fire it up, back it off the ramps, try to get it on level ground, and we're gonna have to let it sit for 2-3 minutes, so all the oil that got ran through the motor actually goes back down and drains back down into the pan, so then you can actually get an accurate measurement. And I know this is pretty hypothetical, or not hypothetical, but like really technical for just a typical oil change, but believe it or not, it's actually important, because I've been that guy that has blown up motors because of lack of oil and like rear main pumps or rear main seals leaking and stuff, and it's not fun. Don't ruin a good motor that runs. So we let this thing sit. I've actually pulled it off the ramps, and we're gonna pull out our dipstick again. Hopefully it should be good. Got a little bit on it yet. I wipe it off on the rag here. Everybody meet Shop Dog Rexy. Say hi, buds. So just back in here, the thing that does stink too is that there is oil in the tube, so it kind of misconstrued your readings here. But okay, see, we're gonna have to put a touch more on there. I'm gonna go off of that line there, and like I said, we're gonna put just a teensy little bit more in it, and we're gonna call it good. This motor does burn oil, so that's something that we do need to keep an eye on. And actually, honestly, when you know you have an old tired engine like this, you want to check that engine, or you want to check your engine oil probably at least once, if not twice a week. Like I said, don't run it out of oil, especially if it, you know, is a running engine. So that's going to wrap it up for our first part on this build on our 1983 Chevy S-10. Now, for some of our older audience members, you're going to go, come on, man, I know how to do an oil change. There wasn't much to gain out of this video. Don't worry. All the excitement, burnouts, and thrashing this truck are coming up right now.